You're listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
How's it going? Hope you're all doing awesome, and thanks as always for choosing to listen to my little old Straight to Video podcast. So a couple of weeks ago we had a really fun day at our 80s video shop in Alfreton, Derbyshire, when we were visited by the brother and sister filmmaking duo of Anthony and Claire Bueno, who created the incredible all-inclusive Ghostbusters documentary Cleaning Up the Town. The doc, which took an astonishing 12 years to complete, has been out a few years now, but Anthony and Claire continue to grassroots promote the film all over the country with screenings and meetups, and we were lucky enough to be a part of it. Now, Ghostbusters for me and so many of our generation is such a landmark event, and luckily it's a film that stands the test of time, both as a comedy but just a great film, which I think to this day is firmly in my top 5 of all time. And what Anthony and Claire have put to screen is an incredible achievement, scoring interviews with probably 99% of not only the Ghostbusters cast, but everyone behind the scenes to create an essential account of the 1984 blockbuster. Claire has also written an accompanying book to go with the documentary, and there's also a follow-up, Too Hot to Handle, all about the making of Ghostbusters 2, on the way soon as well. I wanted to chat with Claire and Anthony about their first experiences seeing the film, how it changed the landscape for them, and if it had a hand in setting them off on their path into filmmaking. I think there's some really insightful stuff in this talk, which I hope you'll enjoy. If you like the interview, then please visit ghostbustersdoc.com to pick up your copy, and also to learn all about what else Anthony and Claire have got going on, along with their Cleaning Up the Town live interviews, which you can interact with, and also their Patreon page as well. Right now, though, please enjoy my straight-to-video chat with the wonderful Anthony and Claire Bueno.
We're getting windows put in, so it's just...
Oh, it's rock and roll here. We've paid for some windows. You know, it's a sign of age. Like, normally you get excited about, like, toys and everything up in a beer, but it's like, no, these are windows. These are, like, really nice aluminium black. They're going to look the business.
Yeah, nothing too exciting, but a nice change from the old routine, and looking forward to talking to you today.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So we had a blast the other weekend. It was a lot of fun. Everybody who came had a great time.
Yeah, everybody said exactly the same to me, just messaging me and saying just what an absolutely brilliant time they had and how much they loved the shop. And yeah, it was brilliant walking in there. Yeah. It evoked so many memories for me as a child, going in, or when I was a child, 13, 14, on a Friday night, getting your weekend video tapes. So you go in there on a Friday night and there'd be like Superstition and The Changeling. I was bringing all these horror films, American Werewolf in London.
Smoking the Bandit 2.
Smoking the Bandit 2. You know, it evokes all the whirring of the videotapes and the machinery, the mechanics of it. You know, there was a process, wasn't there?
I've even used it in the new doc. So we found our original VHS player that we bought. So we've got to use this because there's, you know, a lot of our Ghostbusters memories was through this VHS. So then you turn it on, you hear that little sound, and then you put the tape in, and it was and we had some old VHSs because I know there's a few things that need to be fixed, but it was like, God, this is really just the sound of it. All of a sudden, you get this absolute swell inside. You know, you don't get it. I mean, I know there's people now replicating sound cards for new computers, so they sound like old hard drives wearing up and old floppy drives. And it's a really powerful thing because you are fully echoing back to your past, but to a time when it was like, this was awesome. These days, there's great stuff going on, and yes, streaming has made things easier. And even last night we sat and watched Terminator 2, and it was, I've got it upstairs. It's like, I can't be bothered to go upstairs, and I kind of know where it is. You don't want to feel like that because you want to keep the dream alive, but it's like, my room's such a mess. But I did. Anyway, we found it, watched it, it's fantastic. You know, I mean, I love being in that shop because it was standing in a shop for, you know, the equivalent of searching through Netflix, but you're not going to have the same sort of like feeling as like scrolling, as well. You're looking around at all this great artwork and picking it up and, oh, what about this and what about that? Oh.
Yeah, we had a good time.
We did.
Are they all your toys behind you there, Anthony? The Star Wars stuff?
They are. So they've all been tucked away. So this used to be my bed. Through there used to be my nan's room. And then this used to be the loft, and they got converted. And that was my like bed space. And it was always in my head for years, like, I'm going to get that properly kitted out with all my, like, I'd get them all out of the loft and then do all the do.
Are these your originals from back in the day, or have you done that adult thing where you can actually afford to buy them now you're older?
Unless I had it and it's actually mine, like these were all mine from like back then. My mom was very generous Little I Want, I believe, was my nickname back then. And so I've still got, and I always kept as good condition, like keeping them in their boxes. It was just me. I was just the way I was. But there was a point where I was just like, I can't just keep buying shit because it just then just you like it. And then it's like, but that's it. It's just there now. So there's still Star Wars things that I don't have, but it's like, I didn't have them as a kid. All of these, I've got memories of playing with them and when I've got them, and the Falcon, which is in my bedroom. I remember buying that with Mom and carrying it on the bus home. It's all things like that. I need to have that specific toy that I played with. Yeah, personal to me.
I think that's why the video shops connect with so many people as it has, because people have got the attachment to the films. It's the memories attached to them, or going to rent that same tape from the video shop. It's the same thing, really, I think. So how about you, Claire? What did you save from when you were a kid?
From my records, definitely. What have I got?
Professor Owl.
Professor Owl, yeah. Did you have Professor Owl?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So Professor Owl was a toy owl. He was about that big, and on his tummy was a slate chalkboard, and you would open up that chalkboard and you would have like little shelves to keep your chalks, and there were things like, those magnetic letters. You'd go and you could spell things on it because it was a magnetic chalkboard. So I got Professor Owl. Board games, I'm massive on board games. Cluedo, big time Cluedo fan. Still to this day, that's like my favourite. I love whodunit type stuff. And that goes back to like books like Hound of the Baskervilles and stuff. That's like my favourite book from childhood and still today. So I was very attached to books, actually, more than probably films. But I watch a lot of really old black and white films like Hitchcock's Rebecca. And I did introduce you to the kind of the horror stuff in the video shop, but also like The Wicked Lady with James Mason and Margaret Lockwood, because our mum's been a massive influence on us with regards to film and stuff. What else have I got from my childhood?
Do you think the older you get, the harder it is to get rid of it as well?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is, actually.
This is the very first Star Wars toy I ever got.
Wow.
So it was like a headmaster would reward us when, you'd done something particularly well or something. So we'd had like a treasure chest in his office and he's like, oh, just pick a toy out. And it was Chewie. Must have known something about Star Wars. I'm trying to think. We're going back to, so it must be like late 70s, maybe 1980. And so that was it.
So I want to start by going back to 1984, arguably the biggest ever year for pop culture. The two of you, I believe, were growing up in Torquay in Devon, and this was the year that we got some of the biggest films of all time: Gremlins, Beverly Hills Cop, Footloose, Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom, plus a little film called Ghostbusters, Band-Aid, 1984 by Van Halen, Like a Virgin by Madonna. The list is endless. Then as kids, we had all the amazing toys and TV shows. Obviously, a lot of this was brought over from the USA, but what were the two of you into? Being brother and sister, did you share similar interests, or was you like totally different?
I'd followed suit with Claire.
That probably was an influence on you.
Yeah.
I was definitely into fashion. I remember going to see Ghostbusters, and Ghostbusters for me is a seminal film because it was the first film I was allowed to go and see without parental supervision. I'm around about 14 years old, going to the Odeon, and I was in my pegs and my turquoise checked blouse with my studded belts. Distinctly have that memory of being frightened to death of the library ghost, jumping out of my seat and then like looking to see if anybody actually saw me jump out of my seat and then laughing at myself. So it was a big year for me in that respect. And then I just came home and started to talk to you about Ghostbusters and things. So I was very much into 1984. When was Miami Vice and stuff like that as well?
It's going to be around that time, yeah, 84, 85, 86.
Tears for Fears, I remember songs from The Big Chair, playing that on my Sony Walkman, and Jan Hammer and Miami Vice.
Yeah.
That was a big thing for me.
What was it like growing up in like the Devon area? Did you feel like far away from everywhere else?
Probably something like being on the set of Lost Boys.
It's a bit like that. I mean, I was still too young to kind of know any different because I was only 10 at the time. And we grew up in the sticks, really. We were the last house on the left, if you're traveling in the right direction, that is. And we overlooked Dartmoor, but we overlooked the moors. And so, one of the videos that Claire got out was American Werewolf in London. And I was petrified of horrors. And I don't know how I got through Werewolf, but we did. But we overlooked the moors. So to me, I didn't know it was Yorkshire moors or Welsh moors or wherever. It was like the moors.
Did that make it extra terrifying? It's like, this is like where I live.
Yeah, it was. And the funny story to that was that we had chickens at the time at the bottom of the field, and we'd finished watching American Werewolf in London. It was that, wasn't it? And then somebody said, anyone lock the chickens away? I don't remember doing it. No, I don't remember doing it. And then I just remember Mom, Nan, and and us too. Pitchforks.
We had broom hand, and we didn't. We literally did. Mum had this ornamental knife, and we had these ornamental daggers, and we were just like...
And literally like walking down the hill in the pitch black in the middle of the countryside, overlooking the moors to see whether, we'd locked these chickens away. We were scared, and we had locked them away.
So I was still into like He-Man and Knight Rider. Music-wise, I kind of followed suit. I liked Adam and the Ants. I know that was one thing. Flash by Queen.
We're the same age, so I think the Flash Gordon soundtrack's the first record I remember wanting to buy. When was that, 1981?
Might have been around about that, yeah.
And don't forget Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh, God.
I remember us sitting, was it Rock Around the Clock? It was called. They were showing it at midnight, and it was going to be the first of a UK screening of Thriller. And that is a distinct memory in my mind from that time as well. And that was amazing. I still love Thriller to this day.
All this stuff, it all came from the USA. What was the USA like for you? Was it like this incredible pop culture world?
Yeah, good point. I would say so.
Yeah.
We weren't as globalised as we are now. So it did feel like another world away.
Yeah, because you had like Jonathan King's...
Yeah, Entertainment USA.
Which is either in the first stock or this one, I can't remember. Maybe it's this one, I can't. I know this one, the new one. They'll have a little snippet of that in. Because obviously I'd love this stuff on tape because it was like Ghostbusters and things like that. But it was exotic.
Yeah,
you're talking about like he's traveling around America and like, which is like most people like nothing. I mean, I Wish You Were Here and all those kind of things were just like massive shows. Really was like another world. And I remember when we would chat with Landis about American Werewolf, and he goes, it was easy to distinguish American to English because the whole fashion was completely different back then. I can't remember if I wanted to go there. I think I always thought New York was a much different kind of place than it is now. So I was always pretty petrified about going to the States. Yeah, I don't know if it would be just too big for me. I wasn't big on traveling, if I remember rightly.
Well, no, we're half Spanish. So, we would go to Spain like once a year with our family. And that was a big deal, being able to go to Spain maybe once, twice a year to see family over there was a big thing. It wasn't so easy to hop on a plane and inexpensive because you didn't have budget airlines and things like that. So USA was like, oh my God. And if you think about it fashion wise, American Werewolf in London with the puffer jackets, that wasn't a thing. We had punk skinheads, mods, rockers and new romantics probably at that point. So I think we've always been a bit edgier.
At what point did you first go to the USA? Had you been many times prior to making the documentary?
But I'd never been to America until...
Yeah, you went there the first time. We were screening Beware the Moon, I think.
Yeah.
At Horror Hound in Indianapolis. And that's the first time you went.
Yeah.
I'd been in 99. My girlfriend at the time, thankfully, was also into Star Wars. So Phantom Menace was coming out. It's like, well, we want to go away somewhere. And I had a friend that worked at British Airways and a friend that worked for the Hilton chain. So we can get discount flights and we can stop at the Waldorf Astoria. One Waldorf salad. And it won't cost us as much. So we went for a weekend because I did not know if I was going to enjoy. Because every time I've traveled, I've just really wanted to come back home. Because it's always been Spain and the family and they're a bunch of nutters. So it was just easier. So it was just like, we'll go over. And if we go over this time, it'll be like about 2 or 3 weeks before Phantom Menace comes over. And that's what we did. So that was the first time we go was 99. Some of those photos come in really handy when we was doing the docs. Mm-hmm. We needed photos that were clearance free of the era. And so that was my first time going. And then the next time must have been, about 10 or so years when we started to Wear the Moon. Yeah, I remember Claire was talking to Landis because he was there for the screening. She goes, oh, this is my first time coming out. And goes, you're coming to Indianapolis? That's like the first time you're going to England, we're going to Bristol. So by that time, I'd been maybe 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. I'd been everywhere else in the world. I'd travelled Australia, Thailand, backpacked and quite an adventurous traveller. But America was really not on the wish list at all. And then I went there and really liked it and was quite surprised, actually, how much I liked it and how much I really liked the people and how welcoming and lovely they were or are.
Me and Chris were talking about Phantom Menace the other day, and I can't remember it, but I don't think Phantom Menace came out for several months after in the UK.
I want to say May 2nd that it came out, and then we got it June something.
That's crazy nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really got into kind of like cinemas like a few years ago, like how they work and how they run. And a friend of mine he's a bit younger than me, but he started working in a cinema about the age of 14, like learning the trade. And he still works in the industry now. But it was just like, there's only so many prints. They've got to wait until they've done their run and then they can send them to other places in the world, UK. And, we just don't live in that world anymore. When we with Cleanin Up the Town, it had to be secure. It was on a little hard drive, DCP with a special code, because it was all to do with the distributor over there having completely coughed up. But it's like, man, I will go and do this thing. So we have to be really kind of, got to be in the box, and you got to open it up and got to delete it once it's done. But nowadays, well, we can send a link.
Things are moving too fast for me at the moment. It's like you just start getting your head around certain things. It's like the internet comes along, then something streaming comes along, and like being in music and stuff like that, you're just getting your head around something. Now AI's coming along. Now you've just got to get your head around that, and it's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So take me back to December 84. You mentioned seeing Ghostbusters the first time at the Odeon in Turkey. Claire, you got to see it first. Did either of you know anything about the film before seeing it? Was there an excitement or buzz, or was it just another film to go and watch?
Yeah, there definitely was a buzz. My friend was telling me yesterday when I saw her, like she bunked off school to go and see it in the daytime, Julie.
Was that because it was selling out every night?
Yeah, I mean, those were days when there were queues out the door. I definitely remember queuing to get in there. And I do remember, and I don't have a great memory, but I do remember there being a lot of anticipation for it, for sure, because it was like all of us organised. There was a group of us that went. So it was like, yeah, we've got to go out and see this film.
But that was the thing, it was like, we're going to go and see such and such. I knew about it probably more because of the song, because that had already been out. That had already had its run, but it just kind of kept on going. And then the film came out. And I'm thinking, well, I probably didn't see it till January of 85. I remember the first kid at school to see it was Stephen Boston, and he would talk about it. But again, I was like freaked out by horror films. So in some of the shots, you saw sort of the zombie cab driver, and I'm like, I don't know.
And that opening is genuinely creepy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Genuinely creepy opening.
The good thing about Ghostbusters is they were just making a film. So they weren't kind of, it's got to be this and they've got to tick certain boxes. Whereas these days that kind of goes on. So try and have a bit of horror infused into something it's all a bit more sanitized now. Mm. And the horror stuff, it's like, stuff's a bit kind of creepy as well. I mean, I know the latest Ghostbusters was like a hand on a thing kind of going around. I thought, that's actually quite good. Fair enough. But yeah, it's not like they did back then. I mean, I remember being a kid and reading that Jaws, or the rating that it got was a PG. And it's like, oh my God, that film absolutely freaks me out. I mean, we grew up by the ocean. I never went anywhere near it for years because of Jaws. So, and it's like the blood that you're seeing, it's like, that was only like a PG. But that was, again, way of the world back then.
What was it particularly for you, I think, Anthony, that made this film so special? It becoming such an important thing for you?
It's just a really good film. And I think that's probably the crux of it. So I was just into all of that kind of stuff that was fanciful, like Star Wars and Knight Rider or He-Man and all those kind of things. So
I think the paranormal and the ghosty stuff is definitely what piqued your interest.
But you'd spoke about it, and it's like, I'll give it a go. And it's just like everything. You got all these great special effects. You got the proton streams, which look incredible.
And it was funny.
It's funny. You got the humor and the humanity of the people there. I mean, half this stuff I didn't even realize. I think, oh my God, what a great film. It's only like going to film school, which I didn't do until I was about 30. And then you analyze, and it's like, it's a really solid film. That's why it's really good. That's why we like it. Decades later, people are dressing up like it because it's solid. Every scene moves on the plot.
How is that even possible? It's like, it's got a solid script, but there's so much improvisation in it as well. But it all moves it along and adds to the whole thing. Bonkers, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the genius of it, more so than any sort of like thing I would say that come along up until that. I know we have the ad-libby kind of stuff with probably like things like Caddyshack and Meatballs and all that kind of stuff, all from Harold Ramis and Ivan kind of like path things. And Blues Brothers probably to a certain degree.
But the production values.
It was just completely different. Yeah.
Which you wouldn't have realised at the time. But it's an epically big film compared to Caddyshack and things like that.
Yeah.
It isn't like a little independent film. And all of that adds to the kind of put into the melting pot that just makes it an exceptional film, really.
How many times did you see it at the cinema?
Oh, God.
Ooh, that's a good one. Not as much as I would have seen Ghostbusters 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Purely because of my age.
Yeah.
Because I was 10, if I could have driven myself there, I would have. So I imagine maybe I saw it twice. I'd like to think I probably saw it more. And I remember getting a re-release in 85. I remember seeing the adverts for it. It's like, so we've got to go see it, which I'm sure I probably did. But it was always, to get your parents. My mom and dad were working, or I actually might have separated by 85, but it was just, we had a guest house, and it was just like, especially in the summer, mom didn't have a lot of time, just like tooling into town. I could probably drive by then, actually. So there was all those things that I couldn't, my school wasn't like in town. It was on the outskirts a little bit. So it wasn't like, I'll go nip and see it after school with my mates. All of our friends in my school, everyone was spread out, especially actually where we were in Higher Commons. There wasn't anyone close by from my school. A lad down the road, and sometimes a friend would come over from school, but we were that far out.
Yeah.
And again, the era and the way that it was. So I don't think I would have seen it as much as I would have liked.
It was released on video the following Christmas. Was there like an anticipation getting to see it again? Or was the pirate copies floating around school?
But I don't know around school. I still have mine. I think that was the only way we was able to get it. Why I haven't got the extra rental of Ghostbusters, I do not know. But I don't. I still to this day don't quite know why I haven't got it. But again, like the 5 years between, like when it came around to Ghostbusters 2, that was a different thing. That got played to death. But I don't remember. We must have rented that.
Because
it was already on loan, and you were.
Yes, of course, you had to get there early. Otherwise, somebody would have picked you to the post.
So I remember we was on holiday in Benidorm, which is it was a very different thing for us. When we went to Spain, it was always the family, and they lived north of Alicante. So most of the time you're in the sticks. And actually on that particular, when we did go and see the family, and I really wasn't enjoying it. I was already getting to an age where I was getting a bit more, what more from this? And a cousin of ours had The Karate Kid on VHS, and that was played like 4 times a day. I absolutely loved The Karate Kid. So it was just my savior. But I remember when we was in Benidorm, and there was like the main drag there, I think. I've only been there that one time. But all the bars would be playing pirate copies of like all the films that time. There's Indiana Jones, Porky's, Ghostbusters. It's like, ooh, we can see Ghostbusters. And it's really gorgeous weather. And it was, I remember this really dingy, dark bar. And it was just like, but watching this really crappy copy of Ghostbusters. But I was just like, is this the best bit of the whole holiday? So
love it.
That was what I remember. I'm still got the pirate of it. And we'd also we wanted to tape Only Fools and Horses Hull and Back. And so my dad's friend was the one who's doing the copy. So any chance he's got the Only Fools and Horses on? He goes, yeah, I think he can do it. So on that tape is Only Fools and Ghostbusters.
Mint. Anthony, you and I are the same age, so we'd have been 10 at the time of its release, but I don't recall any real merchandise at the time. That seems like a massive misstep. Do you think the success of the film just caught everybody off guard?
Yeah,
yes,
it did. The people making it weren't expecting it. They thought Indiana Jones was going to be the big thing. Where we live, there was certainly a void in that. I don't know if it was like countrywide, but I don't remember like T-shirts and stuff like anything.
I had the storybook, and I think I had a sticker, and I think that's about all I had.
I got most of mine from the Bull Ring. We'd go up and see relatives, and they have like also like dodgy stuff, and all of which I still have. And in Spain, and I remember being able to get this in Spain, this little kind of like dangly badge thing.
That's 1984, is it?
So it's even got the thingy on there.
That is cool. That's legit. That's official.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know, it was just like, there was in Spain.
1984, Columbia Pictures Industries, Inc., manufactured by Kangol, Barcelona. There you go.
Probably worth a chunk of change.
Well, it could be actually.
You didn't part with it with your hand.
A set of windows paid for, hopefully.
I mean, it wanted to like the cartoon came out that you could get like the proton packs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and cornflake boxes.
Yes. There were some transfers, which you had to put in water.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Which I still have the beds. We had bunk beds. Because I put these things on, we never, ever get rid of this bunk. So it's packed away in the loft. And I saw it the other day. It's like, oh my God. But it was like jigsaws, which I had Stay Puft. There was a few jigsaws. I remember being in Woolworths and seeing things. That was kind of it.
Maybe the two of you can answer this. It baffles Chris and I. As far as we know, Ghostbusters wasn't the biggest grossing film of '84 in the USA. It was Beverly Hills Cop. And that wasn't released until later in the year. How is that even possible?
That's got to be like, it was released like December. I think it was like December of '84. That must have carried on, but it ended up making more into '85. But that would still class it as being a big hit in '84. That's the way I've only figured it.
It's bizarre, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I think Ghostbusters was like worldwide the biggest film.
Yeah. Well, it was the biggest grossing comedy of all time.
Till Home Alone, I think it was. It was the biggest comedy. It was 220 million. I think Beverly Hills Cop made 240.
Only thing Chris and I can put it down to, with it being in America, is just the Eddie Murphy Saturday Night Live effect.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, I love Beverly Hills Cop. It's in my top 10, but when we first heard that, was like, no way. That's got to be a typo.
Was he a bigger movie star at that point, Eddie Murphy, rather than Dan Aykroyd and Harold and
Trading Places?
48 Hours. It's kind of like where he just hit his kind of boom. It had Delirious out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course. And that was massive.
Delirious was massive.
I remember everybody talking about that at the time.
But I don't think we in the UK can fathom how big Saturday Night Live is over there.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, I think, was what was interesting about Ghostbusters, about how it did lift them all to this global platform. Because maybe I knew about Bill Murray, but I doubt very much I knew who Bill Murray was. Dan Aykroyd, I would have known really by name, but I knew the Blues Brothers, because that's one of our favourites that we used to rent video shop. But I wouldn't have necessarily known it by name by then. And so, yeah, it just elevated everything. When you look at those numbers, they're always, certainly nowadays, it's like the global figure numbers. Whereas back then, it was always just the domestic US box office. So was the UK was always seen quite low, very low by comparison. So that was always the gauge. How much it made globally, I can't actually remember, or even if that, it's probably on IMDb about how much Ghostbusters made in that sort of like sense. But yeah, it was 220 was, I always remember, was that kind of figure that it had made back then. But yeah, Beverly Hills Cop's like filthy, bloody Beverly Hills Cop.
You both went on to study and work in different areas of the film industry prior to making the Ghostbusters documentary. Had there been any particular films or events that contributed or inspired this for both of you to move to London to work, or was it just simply a love of film as a whole?
Definitely a career move to London, in the sense that, you know, I wanted to do sort of TV presenting and things like that, and journalism, and the Southwest was limiting in that respect. So for me, ending up in the entertainment industry and working in film was, I basically got an audition to become a red carpet reporter for, they don't exist now, but they were called Leicester Square TV, and I was their kind of founding presenter, and I would conduct all the interviews on the red carpet with George Cleanin and all these amazing people, you know. And so my kind of real insight into the love of the craft of filmmaking really kind of exploded at that point, I would say, for me. I mean, I always enjoyed films and going to the movies and stuff, but you were the cinephile, definitely. Yeah. And I was into the kind of the music. I was probably more into music growing up. And then when you start to sort of talk to these people and hear their stories, and, you know, there isn't this instant trajectory for everybody. There's hard graft and, you know, a lot of going without before, and if you're lucky enough to get any success. And I just found this can-do, get up and go really inspiring. And then you were at film school.
Yeah.
And you went to London independently. I went to London independently. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to work together. We literally were like, you've got talents behind the camera. I'd like to think I've got talents in front. I'll leave that for others to decide. Let's merge those skills and let's do something. And that was kind of the springboard, wasn't it?
Yeah. Claire had been doing it longer than I. She'd been working in the NHS for years. And I'd been doing it 6.5 years by the time I'd left. And I have a varied life. I went to work with my dad in Birmingham because he had a restaurant. So I did waitering for a few years and didn't take to that, which I think was more just living in Birmingham because I just didn't like it. I think if it had been down here, it might have been a different kettle of fish. And then Claire was working in computers by that point. I thought, yeah, I like computers. So let's give that a go. And there was some work experience and I did that. And then it led to a job there. So I did IT support for like the 6 years. But then I was getting towards the end. I had a girlfriend at the time. She'd moved to Bristol and I thought, and she was also going to work in computers. And it was like, maybe I'll go and do that. And it's like, yeah, but if I leave, basically, it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to be kind of working with the same people. Certain jobs do attract a certain kind of personality type. Originally, like when I first started there, everyone that was doing IT had all come from completely different backgrounds. So we were all just a bit of a laugh. And then that all started dropping away and all the people had been to university and they didn't want to swap keyboards and print cartridges. No. So it was just like, oh God, these people are a nightmare. I know nothing about the basics. So I was just like, I don't want to do this. And I saw an advert for New York Film Academy in Empire magazine.
I mean, that sounds cool in it straight away.
Yeah, it does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just like, I was like, And it was like, I was doing okay. The job was okay at the time. I thought, well, I can afford to do it. So I did a 2-month course and I went to London. Thought I could go to New York, but I've never lived in London. It'd be nice to see what the capital's like, really like, rather than sort of like visiting friends and being shit scared because there's bloody drug deals happening on the corner, which is something else. I was like, oh God. But anyway, and I did that and it was literally like, there's no way I can go back to the old job. Within a few days of doing the course and learning about stuff that I didn't have a clue about up until like literally like the previous week, there was like, oh, that's a line meter. And you just like, all of a sudden it's like these little things that you've heard about over the years just fit right into place. It was like, ooh, this is actually really good fun. And then I did a year course and I got a sabbatical from work as did Claire for a year. And that was it. Never really intended to go back, but it's like, you never know. There was a recession going on at the time and there was all stuff, but it was like the thought of going back to the old job.
When you start working for yourself, like, I can't imagine having a boss now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. It's just like sod that. Yeah, I don't know. It really was like those light bulb kind of, and also there was friends at work that used to like films and we used to go to the cinema and that. But this was like, you go to film school and the first day or two, there was a point where I think I've bitten off more than I can chew because they are deep into kind of all these things. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't understand the terminology. And then within a few days, it all kind of fit in. I was just like, this is actually a bit of a laugh to get a film camera and you hear it going, and you do it. It's all in black and white on 16 mil black. Oh God, it was just, I even miss those days now. So never going back type of it. And never have I mean, we've been through some really tough times doing stuff, but not at any point through even the hard times was like, wish I was back doing the old job on, thinking I was an easy street.
That kind of ties into my next question, because around 2008, you began the decade plus journey piecing together and making your Ghostbusters documentary. Was there ever a time frame when you started? Do you think you'd ever pulled the trigger if you'd have known it would have taken that long?
That's a really good question. No, I don't think so, because I think our motivation is about the journey, and maybe erroneously, we're not driven by money. And that's probably why we're not sitting in a mansion next door to Ray Parker Jr.
We were watching Terminator 2 last night, and they were going to Miles Dyson's place. And I just looked at Claire, like, well, if we'd have stayed in IT, we might have had a house like that.
Yeah, literally. But, I think we did have this kind of 2-year plan that we would get it done by. If we'd known it was going to take us longer, I don't think that would have deterred me because, in our mind, when we self-funded the first 8 years, so in our mind, it was, if we were to go on holiday, you go to Universal Studios or Disney World or wherever. I mean, we were never really into that, but, whatever holiday, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands of pounds. So why not invest that thousands and thousands of pounds, take ourselves and have this adventure that nobody else is ever going to have? But we can take away all these amazing memories of, we're on an adventure. And I think that has always sort of kept us going. And to be honest, we have been on an amazing adventure. We've met the most incredible people. That's not just, other fans of Ghostbusters that have become, followers of our work over the years, but the people who allowed us to sit in front of them and let us interview them. These two people from the United Kingdom who had no inroads to the film industry. It was just this can-do attitude, which I think the Americans really buy into and appreciate. People on their own coin, traveling the other side of the world to go and interview and travel all over America, which we did. And we have been on this amazing adventure that, nobody can take those memories away from me. And when I'm 90, I can say I've led a good life. And that was always my motivation, because you only live once.
Yeah.
Just then you said you weren't particularly connected people who were in the industry.
No, not at all.
But yeah, I think your quote was you dared to dream on it, which is a nice way of putting it.
Absolutely.
What inspires that attitude? Is it a confidence in yourself that when you have an idea, it's a good one and it's going to be worthwhile? Or is that confidence passed on from a particular person? Or are you just stubborn? Like, I'm going to do this.
Wish it was that simple.
I absolutely know what my inspiration was. I had a dead-end relationship for the big part of my 20s, probably early 30s. And when that came to an end, I had looked at that and went, I have achieved absolutely nothing. And my 16-year-old self had a dream that she was going to have a great life. And up until that point, it had been mediocre. And I was never going to say no to an opportunity again. That's been my mantra for the last, we're on my now 56. And I still have that attitude. I say no to nothing and everything's an adventure. I mean, I wouldn't sell my body, not that anyone would want it. But you know what I mean? There are boundaries.
On the black market these days.
But it was like I wasted my 20s and I wasn't going to waste the rest of my 30s, 40s, 50s and onwards. So that was my motivation.
I don't know. I've never been very good at doing stuff I don't like doing. I did a job for one day once because I thought, I don't like this. It was a window firm down here. And I went in and I was just like, I can't do this every day.
Pretty much right away if it's for you or not.
Yeah.
I have a lot of that admiration for people that just like knuckle down. No, got to go, got to earn my wage and got to do it. And that's absolutely fine. I've just never been built like that. It just churns me up inside and just makes me feel ill. Because when I do something, I like to think I'm doing it and I'm going to give it my all. And I'm not just doing it because whatever, I'll do it for now. And I'm doing stuff for friends now. And it's just like, I always want to make sure I'm doing the best job. And at least I'm not accused of sort of like dragging my heels and all the rest of it. So there's that element. But I had a lot of sort of, and I don't kind of park on about it, but I had a sickly child. I was a sickly child. And even recently, I've been quite ill. So you just sort of you have that element of like living for the moment. You never know what's going to happen around the corner. And I still see friends and they've never moved away. If anything, they've got holidays, but they've lived in the same place, they've done the same job for decades, and that's absolutely fine. But it's like, I can't be that kind of person. I am not built that way. And it's like that journey we've been on.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend about it a couple of years ago, and he's a proper grafter and stuff. He goes, well, you've gone and done all of that stuff. He says, I've never gone and done those things, but you've gone and done this, and this, and met these people, and you're like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
If somebody has said to you, like, you're going to be doing this the next 20 years, although that is quite a daunting thought from one level, but you couldn't say that without saying, but you're going to do all of these things and not everything's going to be great. And weirdly, even some of the bad stuff, you get a weird kick out of, not so much these days, I used to add. Well, I remember the first times things are going wrong. You're thinking, but I've watched Terry Gilliam documentaries where things like Baron Munchausen and La Mancha and stuff, dreadfully wrong. And you're thinking, I've been a part of them now. I know what they're talking about. And you feel as though you've earned your stripes, definitely. You haven't just breezed in like, oh yeah, we make documentaries and films and blah, blah, blah. No, we've really had to go through it sometimes. I can legitimately say now, yeah, I'm a filmmaker.
And Rob, when you've been in that environment, you're in the entertainment industry as well. There is absolutely nothing quite like it. The adrenaline buzz that you get, it is addictive. And I think once you've had a taste of that, going back to what would be a more kind of ordinary, and I don't use that word loosely, but a kind of more an ordinary type of life with a 9-to-5 job, you just can't go back to that.
It's a creative attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Because what you find, and I had an actress friend and she said it's a calling. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly it. Because if you haven't got that in your life, what's the point? And I don't mean that in a suicidal way. And I don't take that expression lightly either, because I think a lot of creative people have extreme highs and lows. And that is kind of part of being creative as well. But once you've had a taste of that life and that adrenaline, I defy anyone to let that go, really.
There's an interview, I think it was Rob Brydon was talking about it.
Yeah.
And it sounds a bit grandiose, but it is, because it's like if you were doing any other job like that, you'd probably pack it in.
Yeah.
It's not always plain sailing. You haven't always got work, and some of that work isn't always good. What I always took away from film stuff was that if you're working with someone and you don't like and you have to work with them for how long? Maybe a few weeks or maybe a month. Like back in the old job, you're stuck with them for years unless you leave or they leave, or they get sacked for something, or you do for trying to throttle them. But it has to be that, because it can be, it's not always amazing. When it's amazing, it's unlike anything.
Yeah.
I get to go to locations that no one else would normally go. So we've been to like places around Parliament and private members clubs.
Yeah.
They're shooting and thinking, so not everyone can kind of like stroll in and see this. It's incredible.
You said it, Claire, about once you stop getting butterflies going into stuff, and I get real anxiety going into things like this, but
absolutely,
I keep going back to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you can. Whether you do the same, like I'm moderating Q&As or whatever kind of interview I'm doing, I'm like, oh my God, for 2 hours or so. It's like, what am I doing? Why am I putting myself through this? So much churning.
It'd be so easy not to do it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And then you come over the other end and you're completely, your adrenaline is raging and racing around, and you're like, that's why I do it. Because when you've pulled something off, you feel its power. And it's amazing. I always felt like when I was interviewing people, you're in the moment. And particularly with actors who they're looking you straight in the eye. It's all about eye contact and being in the moment. And for that few minutes, it's just you and them. And, there's just nothing like it in the world, really. It's amazing.
I wish I could put that kind of attitude to exercise.
Yeah.
I get the anxiety going into it, but I know I'm going to feel good after it. But I just can't do it. I just can't get to that point.
I keep meaning to, but I was just like, oh, God, no.
You get a rush of adrenaline. It's like, do you really, though?
Yeah.
What was the feeling like for you after such a long journey, once the documentary was complete and you got to show it to the public and see all the positive feedback? As fans of the film as well, how was all that?
Yeah, I think when we screened the film in Canada, that was the first time it was being seen by the public. We'd been nervous all day because the thing is, it was going to be in front of Ghostbusters fans as well. So they're either going to really love it or going to absolutely shout you down. But as soon as the film started playing, and we saw how, because you're sitting in with them and how they're reacting with each other. For me, I just looked at Ant and I felt like we'd made something good. But when I sat with the audience, I knew we'd made something very special. And I don't mean to sound big-headed about that. It's just I wasn't part of actually making of it, in the editing and things like that. So I, as a producer, you get to do all the kind of logistical stuff, not the creative. So I really felt like we've made something very special. And I feel very proud of the tiny team that we had and what we were able to pull off.
I mean, that was the thing, doing what we was able to do. When
with limited resources.
Probably about 6 of us or something, 6 or 7 of us, I think it was.
Yeah.
It all split up. 2 doing the music, Claire's doing the producing side of stuff.
Yeah.
I was doing the editing as Derek was. Derek was doing the motion graphics and AZ.
Yeah.
And other people have kind of helped. But it's really, I know the first one, for me, you're watching for mistakes. I'm just petrified I'm going to see. So even though I was watching the second one this week, just getting ready to send it to someone. And it's like, there's a bloody mistake in the motion graphics. No one's ever going to see it, but I can see it. It's like, okay, gone through this like 100 times, but here we go again. So for me, I just remember sitting there just really nervous, and it all went through fine. So I think that first one, it was a bit better for me after that. But it was
phenomenal. When we got to the IMAX, to have the BFI give you a European premiere at the IMAX, that is the most phenomenal moment of our lives, isn't it? I'm not understating that. This is 12 years of blood, sweat and tears. And at that point, we didn't know there was going to be a few more tears to come. But it was a real kind of highlight. And I just remember at the end of the film, most people, when the credits roll, they get up and go, don't they? And everybody was just sat to the end of the credits, and then the curtains closed or it went dark or whatever. I'm not sure they put curtains over there anymore, do they?
No, sacrilege, that is.
And everybody was just sat there and it was silent.
They all fell asleep.
Yeah, that could be one reason. And I just thought, oh my God, people don't want to go. We've had people in tears because there's Harold Ramis in it, of course, and he's just phenomenal. It was just the most amazing experience. I think we've made a film that touches people and moves them, and feel very proud of what we've been able to achieve, really.
And it was weird because we were doing red carpet interview stuff for years up until that point. And it was quite a turning point.
Yeah.
I know certainly the red carpet stuff. I only did a handful of them after that event. And now we've been on the other side of it.
It was amazing for the time that we did it. We met some amazing people.
And certainly it helped and opened doors.
Yeah, it is.
When we come into interviews and stuff. But it was like, we've turned a corner here and we need to pursue what we want to pursue without having to worry about coming and do these type of things.
Yeah.
So it really was. It was quite a turning point. We've started and we've ended one journey, and I knew we had the second doc to kind of like focus on afterwards. So it wasn't completely over. And we're still talking about it now, which I'd love to still talking about, like the doc.
I love that it still seems fresh. Still seems like a fresh project, and there's still so much life in it. And I love the way you guys are doing it. It's very ground level, just taking it one thing to the next and touring it around and everything. I think it's a great way of doing it.
Just an amazing way of meeting people, hearing their stories and what Ghostbusters means to them. And then a friend approached me and said, would you write a book about it? And I was like, oh my God. All the interviews that we couldn't fit the narratives of the film. It took me about 3 years. I probably started that during the pandemic, which brought us moving back to Devon. So again, you're adapting, life changes and you just have to adapt. We moved from London back to Devon. We were needed to sort of look after mum and stuff like that, and then it gave me a chance to write a book and talk about our stories as well. We very much talk about the highs and lows of a 12-year journey of making a film. It's been the film that's just kept on giving, really.
I remember when the screenings were quite a tonic.
Yes, yeah.
Early 2020, and we was going through a whole bunch of legal wranglings with the doc and stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff that was happening there, which I believe is in the book. I just remember that being, just getting it out there, people were enjoying it, and which was really rewarding because you never really know. And it just started up this whole conversation that we could have with people. And, and again, people talking about what the film means to them. And all we wanted to do was pay homage to them and to everybody in it, and not be, there are other docs. This one, somebody was talking about it the other day, talking to Tony Caesar, who was State was on Fire. And there's a doc come out, one of the films he was in, and he's not been asked to be in it. And then you look it up, and it's just basically a bunch of famous filmmakers and some of the cast and crew from the film, and they're talking about it. And it's like, what about people like Tony? And that was our thing. It's like everywhere, we would have found the people that swept the floor, we would have found them and interviewed them, because they've all got a story to tell.
Yeah.
Which is more than often not the more interesting ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Things you've never heard before.
Yeah, and actually, I think I was telling you, we've started tapping into all those relationships that we built. We've got this Who You're Going to Call Live that we do once a month, and we brought Tony Caesar back, and we're bringing different people back from the making of and talking about their extensive careers, because Tony was satellite in The Thing by, Kurt Russell and things like that. But because we've got other people that have worked on Ghostbusters and stuff, they're all having a conversation about the making of. So it's this thing that keeps on giving, and we're just finding not other ways to exploit it, but other ways to kind of enjoy it and explore.
It's becoming more than the documentary.
It is. It has. Yes, it has. And it's been a good sort of 20 years of our lives now.
Love it. Right, guys, I'm going to send you back on a time travel to the late 80s and 90s in Turkey. You're heading to the video shop. Where was your local video shop?
It was Video Mex.
No, Video Mix was mid-80s. By the time we got to the late 80s and 90s, that was Video World by the college.
Was it really?
Yeah. It was like Video Mix was kind of on an industrial estate, basically.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, once we moved here, which we're in kind of the top of Paynton, it's basically Torbados to the locals. And then we signed up to Video World, and that would have been late 80s.
Was it a bigger place?
So Video Mix was a good size in my mind. And then Video World had...
Yeah, it was probably a little bit bigger than your shop.
And Video World, it had two parts to it. So there was the adult section in the one room, probably the more horror section as well might have been in there, I don't remember. And then the other stuff.
So what movie soundtrack is on that Sony Walkman, and what tapes are you going to rent for the weekend?
My films, I think, were Point Break, Silence of the Lambs, Lost Boys, Dirty Dancing.
Solid choices. We always say Point Break is, even though it came out in 92, it's the last great film of the 80s. It's got such an 80s vibe to it.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, exactly. And I always, still to this day, I watch Dirty Dancing and Point Break back to back.
I love Dirty Dancing. My wife Jane's never seen it, and she refuses to watch
No!
it. I'm like, why? Well, at least watch it, then we can stop this argument, when we fall out.
Exactly.
You'll either like it or you won't like it. I think she's scared she might actually like it, not be the film she thinks it's going to be.
Yeah, I think people think it's something, but I think it's quite dark, actually.
Yeah, especially as you get older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
Really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fellow that I met recently, and he had only just watched Lost Boys because he thought it was a Twilight-y kind of vampire kind of thing. I was like, Lost Boys is one of the best.
Yeah.
Probably one of the coolest films of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I regrettably only just kind of really properly discovered the soundtrack. I knew it was out there, but I only recently kind of got it. I think the soundtracks I would have got back then, and I wish I'd had, was Fright Night and Lost Boys.
Fright Night's a great soundtrack.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
What soundtrack for you, Claire?
Oh, what soundtrack for me? Well, I definitely know I was listening to Jan Hammer and Miami Vice a lot. But the soundtrack itself got to be probably Dirty Dancing.
It was a huge soundtracks were massive in the charts.
Yeah, I think it would be Dirty Dancing. But latterly, I, to this day, still listen to the Lost Boys. When I'm feeling like, I just feel like a comfort blanket music, Lost Boys is the one.
What films are you renting, Anthony?
Ooh, what would I have been rented back then? So, I mean, there's Ghostbusters 2. I mean, that was getting rented heavily.
When did you get that rental version of it?
That tape up there, this is from the video shop, and I rented that a lot. And then, so when it came to them selling it to me, it seemed like a done deal. So I would have been renting back then, definitely would have been renting Ghostbusters 2. Inner Space.
Oh, great film.
Loved that. I think it was the first time I remember renting something and realizing I could just watch it so many times. For some reason, it was always like we all sat and watched it together. So I remember watching that like probably 4 times in the one day and a couple of times before we took it back. So it was a good 6 times I watched it. I loved it. So it was Ghostbusters 2, Inner Space. What else would I have rented at that point in time?
Is there a film which you loved and thought was a massive film and thought everybody would know about it? And you mention it to people now and they're like, I have no idea what that film is.
There probably is. That's a good question. I know one time I spoke with a friend about Fright Night and he was like, oh, what's that? I was like, ooh. But I wouldn't like then. It was like The Burbs and things like that. I remember talking to friends about The Burbs. Oh my God, it's really good. It's really funny. And a friend of mine got it. He goes, well, I did think that bit was very funny, to be honest. It's like, all right then.
The Burbs is almost like got Ghostbusters elements. It's a film which you watch now much later on and you spot little things and find things hilarious, which you never saw when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Explorers is kind of one of my go-tos for that kind of thing, which people have not seen or heard of. Can you recommend me a film? I'm like, have you seen Explorers? I'm like, no, I've never heard of it.
I have never heard of it.
Explorers is Dante, isn't it?
Joe Dante, Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix's first ever film.
Oh,
yeah. Explorers. It's very kind of that era of Goonies.
Yeah. We haven't even mentioned the Goonies. Oh, God.
We're just spoiled.
So, yeah, I'll definitely put Inner Space in there, Ghostbusters 2, and probably The Burbs.
I'm coming round. I'll order the pizza. I'm on my way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guys, thank you for chatting with me. I've kept you for far too long.
Oh, thanks, Rob. We've had an awesome afternoon. Thank you for that.
Massive thanks to Claire and Anthony for joining me on the podcast. It was such fun to chat and also to have them visit our 80s video shop recently and show so much support and enthusiasm. Hopefully we can get them back for a screening of Too Hot to Handle when it's released in the near future. But for now, check them out at ghostbustersdoc.com. And over at our 80s video shop, we're busy working behind the scenes on some upcoming events which we'll be announcing soon, along with our 4th birthday event in July. If you want to be first to hear, then the best place is our Patreon page at patreon.com/80s video shop, or just keep your eyes peeled on social media, simply at 80s video shop. So that is all for this episode of the podcast. So until next time, make sure to always be kind, please rewind and unwind, and I'll speak to you all real soon.